Yeah, good morning, all of you. Welcome to this course on Docker and Kubernetes. So, let me summarize what we have discussed yesterday. Okay, so there are different ways to launch operating system. One is we can launch operating system on bare metal hardware. We have concept of virtualization and we have a cloud. In cloud computing also, in cloud infra also, we can create the our operating system, and we have another concept called containers. We have seen the difference from here to here is, in case of containers, we can package the application along with its dependencies, and we can ship that image from one environment to the another environment through a central server called as registry. The flow is something like, what is Docker image? Docker image is application along with its dependencies is called as what? Docker image. When we execute this image, when we run this image, then that is called as what? Container. What it is? Runnable instance of Docker image is called as container. And there should be some location, a server in which we will store our Docker images. That is called as what? Registry. Okay. The place, the server where Docker images are stored. Okay. So how to create these containers? To create these containers, to create these Docker images, to push the images to the registry, we should have Docker installed. Where it will be installed? It will be installed in some host machine. Docker host is nothing but the machine in which Docker is installed is called as what? Docker host. Registry, container, image, then host. These things are now fine. We will interact with the Docker using Docker CLI. Docker CLI is nothing but the command line interface. Command line to interact with the Docker, to run containers, to create images, to push the images to the registries and all. This is where we can install Docker. We can install Docker in any machine. Okay. And in real time, we will install Docker in Ubuntu. Now, the important statement I want to make here is, we have seen that Docker containers will use underlying operating system kernel, and as of now we have only Linux containers. That means we should have Linux kernel. If we want to install Docker in Windows, where do we get the Linux kernel from? For that, we have a Linux kernel called Windows Subsystem for Linux. While we install Docker in Windows, we should install Windows Subsystem for Linux. Then only the containers will be able to run. And as I said, these containers will be utilizing the underlying operating system. Forget about the Windows, focus on only Linux distribution, most preferably Ubuntu. And whatever the operating system can't do, that task can't be done by the containers. I repeat, for example, or else let me repeat the statement again. The containers can't perform a task which can't be performed by the operating system, underlying operating system. That means what? Let's say we have the Ubuntu host, we have the Ubuntu. In that, we are installing Docker. Docker. Okay. So in this, what we do, we will run the multiple containers. This is what? Ubuntu. Okay. These containers will be using underlying kernel, underlying operating system kernel. It means what? If say if particular application, let's say if application A can't be run in this Ubuntu system, then this app also can't be run in the container as well. Okay, that's what I want to tell here. Got it right? So we can run the programs in the containers, those programs that should be run by the underlying operating system. If the underlying operating system doesn't have the capability to run this particular application A, and the container also can't run that. This is one of the important statement I want to make here. That's fine. Now, where do we install this Docker? We will install in some host machine, and after installing the Docker, then that host can be called as the Docker host. So let's take EC2 instance. As I said, there is no prerequisite for learning Docker. And if you don't know how to create EC2 instance, I want to cover that part as well. Okay. So in order to log into AWS, aws.amazon.com, type this, click on sign into the console. How to create AWS account? You can search in YouTube or in Google. It's just as simple as creating Gmail, but additional thing we should have is credit card or the debit card with international transactions enabled. Those cards only will be accepted, and for 12 months the account is free for certain free tier eligible services. Then I want to log in as a root user, feed the password. We will be landing into the AWS console. Go to services, go to compute section, go to EC2, go to instances. As of now, I have one instance which is terminated already. Now let's create one more instance. Click on launch instances. If you are not comfortable with the new experience, please opt out to the old experience. I want to remain in old experience and I want to create Ubuntu machine. Search for Ubuntu here, hit enter. We will be getting different versions of the Ubuntu operating system. My favorite version is Ubuntu 18 and this is free tier eligible. If you want to use deep learning AMI, then it will be charged. So if you don't want to get charged by the AWS, please use free tier eligible. Click on select which type of instance I want to use for this one virtual CPU and 1 GB of memory is sufficient. So I want to choose this free tier eligible instance. Configure instance details, keep everything default. Okay, so if you know cloud AWS, then you will know all these things, but it's not a problem. Keep everything default. Click on add storage. This storage is enough for me. Click on add tags. If you want to give tags, click on add tag. Name, I want to name this machine as Docker host. You can name whatever you want. Configure security group, and I want to allow all the traffic, add rule, all traffic. I want to allow from any IP address. choose this, click on review and launch. Okay, review the settings, then click on launch. It will be asking for some key pair. If you don't have the key pair already, create it. How to create it? So choose an existing key pair or create a new key pair. Let's create new key pair. Now let's name it as Docker. Okay, you can name whatsoever you want to name. Okay, my key pair or my Ubuntu key pair, key, and you have to download this. It's something like password. It will be downloaded into your downloads folder. Click on launch instances. EC2 instance will be launched for you. Click on view instances. It is in pending state. It will take some time to come into running state. Okay, so how to connect to this Docker host machine? For that, download MobaXterm. I know many of you will be using Putty, but I recommend you to use MobaXterm for Windows. So this is there in our documentation also. Click on the first one, click on this. If you click on this, this will be downloaded. This will be downloaded. Extract those files. If you extract this, you will be getting this executable file. If you double click on that, see MobaXterm GUI will be open. So now I want to connect to this EC2 instance. How to connect to this? It is still initializing. Click on this, click on connect. Because this is not AWS Cloud Class, I am going little bit faster, but that's fine. You can revise the video. You will be able to create this. Okay. Now, if you see, we will be having public IP address and the username here. Open the MobaXterm, click on session, click on SSH. Remote host means the public IP address of this instance. I assume that most of you have knowledge of AWS, so that's why I'm going a little bit faster. If you are learning Docker and Kubernetes means definitely I believe that you have some knowledge about this. Okay, otherwise also no problem. You can follow these steps. Copy this public IP address, paste it in the remote host, specify the username. Username is Ubuntu. You have to provide the key value, key which we have downloaded. For that, advanced SSH settings, click on use private key, browse that private key. What is the private key? That is there in the downloads folder. Double click on that. It will be chosen here. Click on OK. We are successfully connected to the remote machine, that is this EC2 instance from my Windows. Okay, fine. Now let's install Docker in this. First, let's type docker ---- version and see Docker is installed. No, Docker is not found. How to install Docker? As simple as running two commands. See, first log in as root user, switch to root user. Okay, now we switch to root user. Then execute this command. With this, we will get the script in this file. We got that file, then execute that shell file. We execute this, Docker will be installed in 3 or 4 minutes. As simple as that. Now, Docker we use to run the containers. Container is nothing but a virtual machine, a lightweight virtual machine, which can be booted up within 1 or 2 seconds. We will see that. To create a container, we need image, like we have Ubuntu image for installing full-fledged operating system. Like that, to create this virtual machine called as container, we should have image. That image is called as what? Docker image. Image is nothing but a package of application along with the dependencies. For example, we have Jenkins. Jenkins is an application. To run Jenkins, we need what? OpenJDK. Okay, OpenJDK we need. Okay, so if this Jenkins application and along with its dependency, this OpenJDK should be there, space should not be there. If we bundle this together, then this is called as what? Docker image. If we run this, then container will be created. As simple as that, right? Now, in general, if we don't use these containers, how to use Jenkins? Install Jenkins in Ubuntu. If you go here, if you go to the official page of Jenkins and click on Debian or Ubuntu, you have to perform all these steps. Okay, first, before that, we should have what? We should have OpenJDK installed in our system. Then after, because the Jenkins is Java-based application, it needs JDK environment. We have to install OpenJDK. After that, we have to run all these commands. Okay. After that, also we are not sure whether Jenkins will be running successfully or not. Okay, but let me launch Jenkins using containers. For that, we should search first. We should have the Jenkins Docker image. Who will create that? The Docker community will already created that. We just have to use that. First, that Jenkins image has to be downloaded into our local machine. How to do that? Yeah, somebody's asking some question.
Yeah, here the application is Jenkins or what?
Jenkins is the application here.
Okay.
This is the dependencies for Jenkins, right? Now, we have to have the Jenkins image to create the Jenkins container. Where are the images are stored? They are stored in the hub.docker.com or docker.io. Okay, both are. So this is the hub.docker.com. This is the Docker Hub. Docker Hub is the place where Docker images are stored. If I search for Jenkins here, see, it is 4 years ago. It is deprecated. It is saying use Jenkins/Jenkins. Okay, so that means what? I want to download the Jenkins image. Docker search Jenkins. Search for it. It will be showing the different Jenkins images. Okay, different people can customize the Jenkins image and they can push in the public registry so that anybody can download it. So these are different people, different organizations, different communities have created the Jenkins and they have stored that into the hub.docker.com and they are available for the public use. But if you see, this is most widely used and it itself is saying that this is deprecated, we have to use this one. So this Jenkins/Jenkins image is stored in hub.docker.com. Okay, so how to download this into our Docker machine? Why to download that? Because we want to run a container from that. We can run the container only if you have the image for that. Now let's download this. For that, Docker pull Jenkins/Jenkins. With this, the Jenkins image will be downloaded into our host machine. Don't worry about all these things. These are the Docker layers we will learn during the course. As of now, we are downloading the Jenkins image from the hub.docker.com. Where did we specify we should download this from hub.docker.com? We did not specify that anywhere. By default, it will be connecting to the hub.docker.com. There it will be searching for this. If it exists, it will be downloaded into our machine. How to know whether it got downloaded into our machine or not? Somebody please could you go on mute? Docker image ls. I want to list out the images which are there in our Docker host. If you press this, see Jenkins/Jenkins is downloaded, and this image was created 5 days ago in the hub.docker.com. It created means it was updated 5 days ago. Okay, and the size of this image is this one. That's fine. How to run this? Just docker run. Okay,
Here,
I want to run. Yeah,
actually, who will update it those 5 days ago?
Jenkins organization will update it. Okay,
Okay, so
community. Jenkins is a
community
open
only
source.
they are update. Okay,
Yeah, community one.
officially. Okay.
Yes. So docker run Jenkins. What we want to do, we want to run a container from this image. For that, we have docker run command, or more specifically, docker container run. I want to run a container from Jenkins image. Okay. So if I do this, what is happening? Jenkins application is running. Have I installed OpenJDK in my Ubuntu machine? No. Have I installed Jenkins? Have I executed all those commands in my machine? No. But still, I am able to run the Jenkins application. How much time it took? It took just 1 or 2 seconds. Okay. So we are
Can
running.
I customize the image once I download?
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, we have that using Docker file or using Docker commit. We can do that. Okay, we will be doing that during the course. Now, how much time it took to create the new operating system and the run Jenkins in that? It doesn't take much. Doesn't it took less than 1 or 2? It took 2 or 3 seconds only. How fast we are able to create the container? Container is nothing but the what? Virtual machine. If you want to create the Ubuntu full-fledged operating system, how much time it will take, imagine. So this is the advantage of the container. Now let's access the Jenkins. So before that, I want to perform a few more things here as of now, which you may not understand that. So let's perform port mapping and run the Jenkins in detached mode or docker ps. So we'll understand that later. 49154. See, Jenkins is starting. If I ping this to you, and any one of you please access this and tell me whether you are able to access this or not. I have pinged the URL in the chat box.
It's saying that external link warning.
I think you are using your company laptop.
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody nearly said he is able to access. Fine.
Okay.
Okay. How fast? Yeah. Using containers, we have launched Jenkins. How fast it is. Okay, so now let's run few commands. Now let me introduce to the few of the commands first. How to see the list of images that are downloaded into our machine. Docker image ls. This is the image we have. How to see the containers. Docker container ls. It will list out the running container. We have docker ps command also. The same thing will be coming here, the same output. If we use docker ps-a, it will show both running as well as stopped container. Earlier, in the first scenario, I have created a container. I have terminated that by pressing Ctrl C, that got in exit state. So if I want to see both running as well as stopped container, we have to use docker ps-a stands for all. Right now, now let's do one thing. How to stop the container? Docker ps. How to stop it? Docker stop. What's the container name? This is the container name. Okay, or else you can use the container ID. Every container will be allocated some ID, some random ID. So doc stop it. This container got stopped. How do we know that it got stopped? Docker. How do we know that it got stopped? If you are trying to access the Jenkins, you won't be able to access the Jenkins. Okay, so that is one thing. Docker ps-a. If you search for this, see it is exited because we stopped it. These are exited. Fine. How to remove them? How to remove the exited containers? Docker rm. I want to remove, or Docker container rm. If you don't mention this container, by default it will be container. I want to remove. So git got removed. If I see only we have one exited container, one thing is already removed. Now how to remove this again? For that, docker rm, the container ID. You can use container rm or else you can use rm also. Okay. If I execute that command again, see we don't have any stopped container or started container because all got removed. Okay. So now if I see again, we don't have any running or stopped containers, but we will be having images. Docker image ls you can use, Docker images also you can use. Both the commands will give the same output. We have Jenkins image. If I want to run container from this again, what I have to do? Docker run, the image ID you can give, or the repository or the Jenkins image name you can give. Let's give image ID this time. So if I see this, what will happen? So Jenkins is now being started because from this image we are trying to create the Jenkins container. As simple as that. We are getting the logs. Okay. We exited from that. Docker ps-a, it is an existed state. Let's remove this again. This is the container. Docker image ls. Now let's remove this image. Docker rmi stands for remove image. Which image? Image name you can give or the image ID you can give. Okay, this is, see that image got removed. So these are the layers which are part of this image. We will understand that concept later. So we have seen docker pull command, we have seen docker run command, we have seen docker image ls command, okay, we have seen docker ps command, we have seen docker ps-a command. These commands we have seen, right? Now, so I don't want to explain these commands like this. We will do the practicals. During the practicals only we will understand that. Okay, so container is nothing but some kind of virtual machine, and we should have some mechanism to go inside that virtual machine. How to do that? Okay, so for that we have -it command to interact with the terminal of a container. Okay, now I want to do one thing. I said that to create a container from the Docker image, first we have to download that Docker image into our machine. Then only we will be able to run a container from that image. Okay. So in order to download that image, the command which we use is docker pull and the image name. Okay. But what if I try to run the docker run command without using the docker pull command first? Are you understanding? What I'm telling is this is, let's remove, sorry. This is up.docker.com. Here we have Jenkins/Jenkins. This is the image name. This is the image name. In the central registry, we have this. Now, what we are doing, this is my Docker host machine. This is my laptop where Docker is installed. Now we are downloading this Jenkins image into our machine. Okay. Now this image is now downloaded into. How we have downloaded that? Using docker pull command. If I use this command, now we got that image into our Docker host. To run a container from this, what we do? We use docker run command. Run command we use. If we run this, then container will be created. This is container. Fine, right? So to create this container or to run this container, definitely we should download that image into our machine. Okay. For example, let's say we have a shell script. In order to run the shell script should be there in our machine. Otherwise, how can you run that? Like that, to run a container, we should have that image downloaded into our machine. For that, we are using docker pull command. If you use docker pull command, then it will be pulled from the hub.docker.com and it will be downloaded into our machine. After we will create the container. Now, what I'm trying to do here, I don't want to pull the image. Instead, I want to directly run the docker run command and see what will happen. Now let's see whether that Jenkins is there or not. That image is not there. We don't have either image or the container. Now what I want to do is docker run. I want to run a container from this image. Is this image located in our machine? No, it's not there, but still I'm trying to run this. If I run this, what is happening? Please observe. Unable to find the image locally in my machine. It is unable to find it. It is unable to find, so it command should fail. But what is happening? If it is not there, it is trying to pull the image from up.docker.com. This image is not there in our machine, but we are trying to run the command, run the content from this. If this is image is not there, this run command, what it does is it will search for the image locally. If it is not found, it will connect to hub.docker.com and it will pull the image from there. Got it? So anytime, every time, you don't need to run this docker pull command explicitly. If you run the docker run command, so internally this docker run command will also does the task of this pull command. That's what I wanted to tell here. So this Jenkins is now successfully running. Okay. So these are the logs of the Jenkins application. That's fine. So now let's terminate this, Control C. So what I'm trying to do is, am I able to run another command here? because these are the logs of the Jenkins. Docker run, what I do, Docker image ls. Am I able to run any command? No. So I want to run Jenkins as well as I want to execute some command. How to do that? For that, what we have to do is we have to run this Jenkins in detached mode. In detached mode, stan-d stands for detached mode. It means I want to run the Jenkins application, but I want to run that in the background. If I do that, the console logs won't be displayed on the terminal. Instead, they will be pushed to the background. Now, let's try to run this command. If I do this, if I execute this, what is happening? Now let's perform docker ps command. See, Jenkins is successfully running. It is up six seconds ago. Okay. So, but it is running. We are not able to see the logs, but still we are able to run another command successfully. What happened to the Jenkins? Jenkins went into the background. Okay. But some reason I want to see the logs of the Jenkins. How to do that? Docker logs. Logs of what? We will see the logs of the container. What is the container ID? This is the container or the container name. This is the container. See, we are able to see the logs. Docker image ls, Docker ps. Okay. So some random name was given to this. This name is nothing but I will show you Jenkins. I want to see the description of this particular image. For that we have docker inspect command. Docker inspect, I want to inspect this image. This is the image. From this image, we run a container. The name of the container by default, it is given. If I see this, see this is the description of the image. Okay. We will have various properties. That container is something like a description or the author name that was provided there by default. Somewhere it should be there. Okay, by default it will be written in the image. That's fine. But what I want to do is I want to give a name to the container. Initially, what we are doing, we are just running a container using this. This is the image name. And if I run this, container will be created from to that container. A default name has been assigned, but I want to explicitly mention the name of the container. Before that, now let's remove this container. To remove RM is there. If I do this, see what will happen. I want to remove this container. It will fail because the container is running. First, we have to stop the container, then only we can remove that. Docker stop the container ID. It got stopped. Now let's use docker rm command. Now it got removed. Okay. So now let's run the Jenkins again. But this time I want to name it. How do I name that container? Name my Jenkins. We use hyphen name option to name the container. If I do this, hit enter. Now see docker ps. See the name that we have given has come. Earlier, this is the name. Now we want to give our Jenkins our own name. So we have given that name came here. Now docker logs of this container can use either container name or the container ID. Okay, that is. Now this container is running. I said that to remove this container, we have to stop the container first and then only the rm command will be working. But I don't want to stop the container explicitly, but still I want to remove the container forcibly. How to do that? Docker rm, I want to remove the container forcibly. With force, I want to remove. Which container? This container. Okay, container name you can give, the container value you can give. So it will do what? It will stop the container and it will remove it. Okay. Somebody is asking Vijay Tota. Yes, hi Vijay. Chat box. I think Vijay can just know that's what he is. I'm creating Azure VM through Terraform. That's fine, Vijay. You can create Azure VM through Terraform. And finally, we will get the VM. In that VM, you have to install Docker with our commands. Okay, so container got forcibly removed. That means the container will be stopped and removed. How to automate these steps? Vijay, automation, you mean to say what? You are creating the Azure VM through Terraform means you are automating that, right? So if you have the knowledge of Terraform, you will be having remote exec. You can run the command in that virtual machine using remote exec module of the Terraform. Using that, you can specify our 3 commands in that so that whenever that VM has created, then those commands will be executed. Okay, you can browse for it. Okay, so remote exec will be there, right, in Terraform. Creating Azure VM and installing Docker using Terraform. Anyway, we are deviating. We are using Terraform means if you have the knowledge of Terraform, definitely some remote exec module will be there in the Terraform so that you will be executing the commands in the remote machine that we are going to create. Okay, so search for that, you will be getting that for sure. Okay, so now let's not focus on that. So what we are doing, so this is how we can forcibly remove the container. Now let's run that container. Okay, now let's run that container. As of now, let's run one more container. Now let's name that container as nginx1, from which image nginx. So I want to run a container and I want to name that container as nginx1. Definitely we should provide the image name from which the container should be created. So this is the image from which I want to create this container from. If I execute that, what will happen? Logs will be coming. I want to run this container in the detached mode so that the logs will be pushed to the background. I will be able to run the commands in the console. If I do this, see, this image is not found locally. So this run command will also try to perform the functions of the pull command. So now this container got created. I said that container is a virtual machine. That means it's a Linux virtual machine. There should be a mechanism to go inside the terminal of that container. How to do that? For that, Docker exec, I want to execute commands in interactive mode. Docker exec IT stands for interactive mode. In which container? nginx1. If I do this, see, we have to provide the bash shell name. Okay, bash. I want to interact with the bash shell of this container. Exec ID we have to use. I want to execute commands in this first terminal of this container in interactive mode. if I hit enter, see, now the prompt went to the container from host. Now we are in container terminal. Okay, so this is what? This is the container ID. Okay, so now we move to the container terminal. Now let's see. See, these are the list of the files and directories in the container root. Okay, you can go to anyone, you can go to any folder, you can go to etc. Okay, if you see that there are files, where are we? We are in the container. We can create our own files. Okay,
How
search.
how you went inside?
Okay, I will tell you again. So now we have created two files. One is file, one is file two. So we are inside the container. We are inside the virtual machine, container virtual machine. Okay. So to exit from this, okay, exit, use exit command. See, exited from the container terminal and we were back to the our host. Now if I see this is being executed. So how to go inside that? I am repeating Docker. I want to execute commands in interactive mode. Where I want to execute? In container, this container. This is the container. I want to execute commands in this. Okay. Then what terminal? Bash terminal of the Nginx. Okay. So if we use sh is also there. You can go to that as well. Okay. So in that, this is how. Now exit from that. Got it right? So this is how we will go inside the container. Now that command is over. Now we have named it, we have interacted with it, we have done it. We will see this environment later. Now let's understand few more things. Now let's run Tomcat server in a container. How to do that? For that, same command docker run. I want to run a container. I want to name that container as my Tomcat. You can give whatever name you can want. You can give C1, C2, or Dev Tomcat, my Tomcat. Okay. Anyway, then we want to run a container. To run a container, what we need? We need Docker image. That Docker image is Tommy or Tomcat. Both are there. How do we know? Docker search Tomcat. See, these are the different images that are paired Tomcat, and this is the highly used one. Or else also you can go to the hub.docker.com. Here you can use Tomcat. You see this? See, these things are there. Okay. How to download this Docker pull Tomcat, but I don't need to use this Docker pull command, because if I use Docker run command, by default it will also perform the activities of the pull command. Okay, so this Tomcat I want to run. For that, Docker run, I want to name that container as my Tomcat. If we don't name also, no problem, and by default name will be provided. Then Tomcat application will be running on 8080 port. You must be knowing this. If you don't know how to know this, if you search here, if you go to Tomcat image, if you see the documentation, there it will be shown. Okay, Tomcat will be running on 8080 port. Okay, here itself it is given 8080 port. Okay, but what we have to do, this is the 8080 port. Now let me come to this here. This is our Docker host machine. We are running a container in this. We are running a container in this. And this Docker host has got some public IP address. Okay, this is the Docker host. This is the public IP address. Okay, this is the container. Okay, what's the container? The container name we want to give as my Tomcat. This is the container name. Okay, and this Tomcat will be running on port 8080. Okay, so port 8080. Tomcat will be running on the port 8080. This container is running inside the Docker host. How to access that? We can't directly access the service using Tomcat internal IP address. Container will be having internal IP address. I will show that later. We will see that in networking section. How to access that? It is internally, it is 8080. This is the port of the container. How to access the application which is running in the container? We have to map this container port to the Docker host port. Okay, what port? We can use any port. Okay, so if a port map this, how to perform that port mapping? Using -p. This is the Tomcat port, and I want to map to 7070 port of the container. Okay, so now if I access this with 7070, the request will go to here, and it will be routed to this container. Okay, this is how it will happen. Now let's see. Now let's execute this command. Now let's run Tomcat in the Docker container. Okay, now let's see. Now let's use Tomcat as the image, or Tommy. Anyway, you can use. There are different images up there. See, application is running. These are the logs. Now, what is the port? 7070. Why it is not found? Yes, Debas is saying yes, we can use any port, or also we don't need to explicitly mention the port. We have the automatic port mapping also. So I don't know why we are not able to access this. Now let's run that command again. If I run that, it will fail because the container with this name is already exist. So now let's remove that. Docker. Now let's remove all the images. Docker rm-f to remove all the running as well as this stopper image or stopped image. This is the command we have. So if we run this, we'll be removing all the images. Now let's run this command 7070. Now let's use -d option so that it will be running in the detached mode. I will be able to run the other command. Okay, this -d should be coming. We can have do multiple spaces or single space also, no worries. See, it is looking on 7070. It is foolish to use 8080 here, but let me try. It's not a problem. So why I am not able to run this on 707? Are we using the 7070 port for any other purpose? I think no, right? Okay, anyway, now let's do one thing. Docker RMF my Tomcat. Now let's use 9090 port. 9090, let's we use. Still we are getting some issue. Anyway, this is one kind of port mapping, or let's see, let's try to use we allowed all the ports. We have allowed all the ports right in this section. All traffic we have allowed. Now let's use port 8080 instead, or let's use 80 itself. Now let's name it as Tomcat 1. So now let's provide 80. What we have for or else let's try to use some random port. So if we don't want to explicitly provide the port number, if we want the Docker host to choose the port, we have to use -P, and let's see whether it will be running or not. 49155. See, some random port was allocated 49155. Why Tomcat is not running? It is very strange. Okay, let's do one thing, guys. Let's use Tom image. Four nine one five six. We are able to access, but why not Tomcat image? Was it deprecated? Generally, we use the Tom image only. But if I use Tom image, sorry, Tomcat image, it failed.
Sir, instead of
There are
using only D, use ITD. Docker
yeah,
run.
we can use that. We can use that also. Okay, so it seems noting that it will return forgeries since there are no web apps loaded by default. Okay, got it, friends. Got it. Okay, we will see that. We will see that tomorrow. So let's use. I will explain the reason tomorrow. Okay, so we have to use what? Now let me try to remove all this and run that command again. Docker ps eq. Now Docker run I want to run Tomcat. How do I want to run that container? My Tomcat. Okay, perform port mapping. Perform port mapping. Now let's try to give 7070 port and map that. This is what I'm doing. So 800 port of the container, we want to map it to 7070. Then after that, which image? Let's use Tommy image. If I do that, now if I try to access this on 7070, it should be accessible.
We ran the image differently, right? Last time.
Yeah, we ran a Tomcat image. If I use the Tomcat image, we are getting some issue. I will find out that. So in description of that, something is given in the Docker. In this, some description was given. Something I'm seeing strange in this. So this is one of the reason it is given. That is the expected error. That's fine. This is how we can perform the port mapping. Okay, that's it for today, friends. We will see more tomorrow. Thank you. And first, let me save the recording. If we have any doubts, we can ask.
Yeah, I posted one question like I'm getting a VM to Terraform in Azure. So I want to run this the steps what you're doing right now.
For that, you should know the Terraform and you should know the Azure VM. After creating the VM, how to install Docker, that is our part. But to help you out, in Terraform, we have a remote exec module is there, right? The remote exec. Remote exec prisoner will be there.
Oh, that is what?
So remote exec, what will be there here is, see, here in connection, we will SSH into that particular virtual machine. We will provide those things here. Then we will write, you see, this provision is there, remote exec. Here we will write the commands. So in this case, which commands we will write? We will write our Docker installation commands. What are those?
Okay.
This one, this one, this one. These three commands, if we put that here, okay, one by one in line, then that VM will be created for you and in the Docker will be installed. Is that fine?
Okay. If I have a custom image, then
which image? Which custom image?
I'm going to have a Python with dependencies.
You want to have Docker image for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. We have the Python image, right? Python 7.0 image, something will be there.
No, but I have some different requirements that will stream.
You want to install something in that Docker image, right? Apart from that default one?
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that. During the course, we will learn that, okay?
Okay.
We're at the start of the course, right? We will create our custom images. That is the ultimate aim of this course. We will create our custom Docker images using Docker.
Okay, sure.
Okay, thank you, friends.
Okay.
First, let me record this session